is
Christmas
time? What is
Christmas
time? Is what? Christmas time.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and it is the end of an era. Lower Decks, final episode, that's what we're here for today. But before we get into the new Next Generation, let's go around clockwise and introduce ourselves. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
Are we going up? Okay.
Yeah, Josh,
I'm
up and around.
Josh at Wind Grace Project, and happy to be here.
Howdy, Prime Universe Robbie from Conversations with Robbie Sherman.
My name is Vanessa, and I host a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
I'm Scott from Opinions No One Asked For. My multidimensional shielding must be down.
I'm Ren from Ren Rants.
Wonderful. I don't think there's any news this week heading out of the last show we get for a while. Let's start with a tough question that a lot of us have expressed behind the scenes. Does Rutherford's story make any sense here?
It could if they had set it up at all this season, like literally at all. They had him treading water the whole season, doing absolutely nothing. Not a single like moment of hesitation. They even met like Cyborg Rutherford, and that didn't seem to like make much of an impression beyond immediately being solved. And now suddenly he's like, oh, I don't love the Cerritos. No, I do love the Cerritos. My implant that I've never complained about is suddenly the problem. So now I'm getting rid of that, which I guess was not necessary. I thought it was like Detmer's thing. Like I thought it was like required.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 4 seasons ago we saw it ripped off his head and he had to recuperate. So what exactly changed? He's got like his original head back.
He regrew his head, yeah.
Yeah. You can
I
just go
have
that.
bad migraines. Like, so I have a lot of like sense memory about what migraine feels like. And when I saw him rip that off of his head, I just like jerked my head and kind of like had sense memory of that. And that was so, yeah, that moment was so painful, and I didn't know if it made sense.
Like, this storyline is such a disappointing way to wrap up this character, because it's like this is evidence that this is not the ending they necessarily had in mind, because Rutherford's story in this last episode is basically tied in with the ship's multiphasic changing, just going from one model to another. Like that is supposed to give emotional weight to the ship changing, so that when Rutherford falls back in love with a Cerritos, it's supposed to be like, oh, I've experienced all the ships and this is definitively the best one. So that's really the only reason that this happens, and that's our goodbye to this character. Like, oh, and they rip off their implant, which apparently they never needed or something. Like,
Even though we saw differently. We know differently.
Don't forget gushing over Tendi like a teenage boy. Like, yeah, we couldn't do anything more with that. We just had to let that moment sit there at the end of our series.
Yeah, is that the thing? Have they been like teasing and kind of hinting at, implying #Tenderford, which I totally ship, but it hasn't gone anywhere further than friends because his implant's been inhibiting him this whole time?
Like, you don't do that at the end of your series. Like, that's junk. Like, that's a bad.
I mean, it's been hinted at more than once.
Yeah, like why would the implant also, like, why would it do that? That feels like a really kind of like intrusive function for it to have that doesn't serve any real purpose other than, like, I guess making you more useful as an officer, but that's kind of sinister for Starfleet. Like, I don't understand like the purpose of having that as part of the implant, and like that feels really weird in terms of like just the interpersonal and social implications. Like it's even demonstrated with the fact that apparently it was like repressing his feelings. Like that's what the hell?
So we haven't known the real guy for 5 seasons. Great.
Unless the one in Reflections was actually him.
Like the implant is the only interesting thing that the lower decks writers give this character. Like at one episode, it's like he has to dump all the memory in the implant of Tendi, and that's a whole thing. It's like I would like to on the one hand I would like to know the implant free Rutherford, but on the other it's like we've had 4 seasons of implant Rutherford, or 5 seasons rather of implant Rutherford, and it hasn't amounted to very much.
Well, they tried in a couple different ways to give him like fathership sort of roles with the Badgie spinoffs, and then a couple of the other, like the Cave episode, he had a kid. So it felt like they were trying to play up that role for him eventually, like he was going to become a dad, or I don't know, but it just kind of, this season they're just like, also Rutherford's in the show.
But it has not given
something in the background so we can say that he was here.
Yeah.
Contractual obligations, I guess.
Like even as like little attention as certain character development has gotten, like the amount of attention that aspect of Rutherford has gotten has been so gradual that it really wouldn't be satisfying to add to it at this point. I just don't understand what fighting for another season would accomplish necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like his character is tapped out if they didn't use him at all until this episode, and then they completely cut against the grain of everything we know about his character.
Right.
I mean, when he just goes completely diametrically opposed, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, it was my implant. Oh, okay, all right.
It would have. It sucks because like it would actually have been an interesting. Not the implant thing. I think either way I wouldn't like the implant thing, but I do actually kind of like the idea of like Rutherford, who's been like so steadfastly enthusiastic about being an engineer, suddenly like feeling like he's in a rut and maybe like questioning his path and then like coming back to it. But like that would have been cool as, you know, a full season journey, a journey we get to develop over several episodes and explore, and like we could have also like had Tendi like support him through that and given her more to do, but instead they just like didn't, and then tried to like speed run this character arc at literally the very last minute. Like I don't understand. It's bizarre.
I still wonder if part of it is related to bringing Tendi back much quicker than they anticipated, because it felt like they might have had an arc with him where he progressively got more and more distraught when she wasn't there. But when they brought her back in episode 2 or 3, he was just done.
Like we were robbed of more story around the Orion allyship with the Federation and Starfleet. I don't think Tendi did nearly enough to establish that allyship. But world, like, and all that goes also for like the Ferengi when they joined. You know, there wasn't much development around that, so it's like this show is so allergic to world building on top of like character development.
I would have preferred more Orion in this episode as opposed to the Klingons. I mean, I know they needed an antagonist, but I felt like that story was
I mean,
done.
We already had the we could have brought back the Blue Orions for sure, and then gotten an update on like Tendi's
the new mistress,
niece
the
coming.
baby
Yeah.
mistress,
Yeah, it's weird that they introduced like to Erica's pregnancy and then just they didn't pay it off at all, and it's like, why did you bother introducing this as a plot point then? There was no other way to get Tendi off of Orion or whatever. Like, this is so weird. Like, yeah, I don't know. I thought they had more warning for this season, and now it feels like maybe no, maybe not.
That being said, the Klingons are a good choice for this specific plot because there's the most versions of them other than, as pointed out, their ships.
Right.
The Klingon boat was amazing.
Yes.
Oh, I fully agree. Bringing the Barge of the Dead back into this,
Yeah.
I absolutely loved this.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And just everybody hopelessly and helplessly just floating into the ether.
Barge of the now literally dead.
I wonder if because they died in, is this honorable combat or because like Grelka is just, this mean spirited bitch? Is it not? I guess it probably is because that's like classic Klingon, even though they seem to be splitting from like the wishes of the Empire.
True.
I don't know. So, okay, we've spent a good 10 minutes here on Rutherford and Tenderford and
More than the show.
yeah, I think we did the entire season even.
When Grace, you were so catty.
Meow.
I'm so
Maybe
candy I took
you
Shax
should-
to the holodeck.
Maybe you should be the Paul Lind in our group instead.
Let's go from Rutherford to some character building that actually I think worked really well. How do you feel about the growth of Freeman as a character over the series?
I liked it. I really liked her in this episode and how quickly she like accepted their like they were alerting her to the situation. Although I thought Boimler's remark at her good captaining was actually weirdly condescending. Like, what do you mean by that, Boimler? Is my captaining usually bad? Like, what the hell, dude?
Also, all she did in that moment was agree that something needed to be done according to the information on the pad. I don't know if that's like, something I would set aside as like good captaining necessarily. She trusts me. Like, isn't she supposed to? But I would say of the upper deckers, as we saw in the last episode, or the episode before the penultimate, she's the most capable of the upper deckers. And I thought it was really funny to see her reaction to having to go on this mission along with the rest of the bridge crew.
Just the side quest. I don't think they actually knew that they were canceled, at least when they first wrote the season. They might have known by the time they finished that they were axed, but I don't think they knew.
That makes a lot more sense in terms of like the pacing and a lot of the like character arcs where it felt like they weren't moving forward fast enough. But back to Captain Freeman, I really love that she does end up at Starbase 80 anyways, but it's actually by choice and she's excited about it. I thought that was really cute and a fun way to like come full circle on that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her character arc over the series. Although I know there's going to be people out there, I can think of at least one who's still going to be like, yeah, but then she, didn't trust her daughter and kicked her off the ship. And, you got to get over that. It was, 2 seasons ago now?
Yeah.
I think that, like, central to her character, she has come around to respecting her daughter, not only as her daughter, but as an officer, a capable officer, because Mariner has been, of the lower deckers, the most consistent in her performance, has evolved, I think, the most over the entire series. And I'm glad to see that their relationship has come to a more restorative place.
Mm-hmm.
Their goodbye definitely made me feel feelings. I did tear up the second time watching through, and I really had time to like marinate in it because they've come so far.
Oh, yes. Yeah, early on in like season 1, I would not have given a crap about any of the relationship stuff.
Well, at the end of season 1, they were sort of like hooking into each other to be a team. That was like their goal. And then early into season 2, that sort of like was undone.
Oh, we can't do
along
that.
with a few other things. So it's like it's been kind of hot and cold, their relationship, but mostly cold because of Mariner's, resistance to doing anything right, knowing that she can, her constant underachieving. But once Mariner embraced the role of LJG, I think her and her mom came together in a much more equitable and loving way. The fact that her mom says, you don't need me anymore, says so much about how much they've come.
I definitely think Carolyn could have a lot of like you could accuse the plot beats of being sketches almost, like they come close to being sketches. I think it's the sincerity and the performances between the actors that really helps sell it.
Planet X, thank you for your donation.
Oh,
Nice.
I don't think it's my favorite. When it first debuted in season 1 and into season 2, I think I might have thought it was at that point.
Mhm.
It's not. I don't think it's my favorite now that it's finished. It's great. It's better than like Enterprise, TOS, probably Discovery.
I like it better than Picard.
Picard's
I
far too uneven to really pin.
I
down.
don't, but I'm the weird one that loves Picard. So
yeah, I think I would stack it like I think I would put it above Picard, but I think I would put most things above Picard.
That's
But
a-
I think like this show kind of is in its own lane because it doesn't really focus on the Trek world building thing so much as other series do, whether I like them or not. Um, Lower Decks to me is more like bubblegum. It's fun, but I wouldn't like say it's so much better than like the live action or other animated stuff. Like I would put this below Prodigy. Yeah, it's middling, but I think it's like entertaining enough where you can just like put on an episode and be entertained for a half hour.
Yes,
I
that's
would
my
put
favorite. Just popping out an episode.
I would put Prodigy above this, but I do think this is probably my second favorite of all the new Star Trek properties. Because I think it, like, when it scratches the surface of what it can accomplish and can pull off, it's a really good Star Trek show then. But when it's when it's kind of middling and it doesn't know its tone, that's when we get problems. And yeah, I've had a good time with Lower Decks, even with my frustrations.
yeah, it's hard. I agree with Charisse from Sci-Fi Savage that it's really hard to compare Lower Decks to anything else. That's why when I like have done my like 818 episodes all ranked together, I don't include these or actually any of the animated stuff because a lot of it's so different. And this one, like, yeah, it's hard to separate the like funny comedic beats from like serious Star Trek. It's good in a different way than most Star Trek.
Yeah, but if you had, I can think of 1 or 2, maybe 3 good episodes that would have been, I think, at least in your top 100. I don't know if any
Yeah,
much higher
there's a
than that,
couple.
like
You know,
between 50 and 100 probably.
I don't think there's that many. I think there's 2 or 3 that would make the top 100 for sure. Anyway, Sci-Fi Set or Planet X had asked this, and we had the question. Do you think that bringing Starbase 80 to the Rift in the end is setting up a spinoff?
It's
It
at
doesn't
least setting
not
up
feel like it.
the ability to, if they don't have plans to.
It certainly smelled like it was going to, and I think the Cerritos going into the Rift and going into the multiverse is probably the best way forward if that's what they're planning to do.
They didn't.
The implications of the rift are absolutely nuts, though. Like, what?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, we're gonna get to that. Holy crap! There's a lot of questions that need to be answered about other things that we know about Trek now, and we will get to that. But it's like it does feel an awful lot like a backdoor pilot here. Like even if they hadn't known that they were canceled going out of this, I think this was a backdoor pilot setup. Either way, it's got so much potential.
Like not quite to the degree that they did with Starfleet Academy at the end of Picard, but there is a strong sense of and stay tuned. I think even Mariner said that.
Yeah. There's so many bits like
Mhm.
you know, just Mariner and Boimler being promoted to this first officer thing, which we'll also get to, but it felt so much like it was set up for something in the future and not just like, okay, this is us wrapping the show up and showing you where people are at. This is setting up your expectations for things to come.
Which, yeah, so the opposite way of TNG, where it felt like a wrap up, even though it was basically like, but the adventure is still continuing. This isn't the end. Here, it didn't feel as much as a wrap up. It felt more like, no, we're still continuing the adventure. You're just not seeing it, or at least not yet.
Right. But yeah, I don't know about the whole season, but this episode in particular definitely kind of seems like a backdoor pilot, much like Assignment Earth.
Feels more so than Assignment Earth, to be honest.
Maybe the new Trek comedy series has something to do with Starbase 80, and maybe that's why they're kind of giving that a little bit of a shine.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that one because it's the thing we know the least about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, long shot maybe, but it would make sense if they're doing this in Lower Decks, the series finale for that.
So that's going to be live action. Like I can totally see Dawn Lewis actually reprising her character as Freeman in that reality. But was it Nicole Nye as Commander Knox?
Byer,
right?
Nicole
Byer. Yeah, she'd be hard pressed to pull off her character, I think, in live action. But I would still be there for that. I think she's a good enough actress to do it for sure.
You think we get Stephen Root back full time?
Yeah, unfortunately not. That's doubtful.
No.
What's your favorite Schrodinger field transformation in this episode?
Probably the barge or the clam.
Yes.
The proto-Klingon stuff is really entertaining for me.
Like,
yeah, the clam too.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Discovery Klingons, but I thought that was really cool for that ship and those Klingons to have that change.
Yeah, that was neat. I liked that.
Yeah, I think that's a sweet spot for Lower Decks. They can kind of poke fun at the inconsistencies of all the other Star Trek properties.
I like that the Klingons also said sense ores.
They did.
I think for me, it's either the Mirror Universe Cerritos or or the Barge of the Dead. I like the Barge of the Dead an awful lot.
I thought the single and the cell design was really funky and interesting.
Watching the ships
that way.
Watching the ships change into each new one was really dynamic and fun to see on the screen. Good payoff.
Yeah, I thought again, the Rutherford thing was just sort of an excuse to do this and not have it just be fan service 100%. But I was okay with that. Does anybody remember the name of the model that was sort of like the chunky boy? I don't know how else to describe it. It was like when they were sort of rapid cycling.
I mean, the chunkiest boy is the D.
I think there was an Oberth in there.
There is an Oberth in there.
Sovereign and
the only one I couldn't figure out was this one. It's not the Miranda. The Trek Culture had identified this one as a Miranda, and it's not. It's like almost a Parliament, but it's not that either.
It looks almost Nebula class. Like if you see it from the top, it would probably be a fair bit. But yeah, I think
this was the only one I couldn't identify 100% either. And it may be like just an amalgamation of all of those saucer with the shells under kind of things too. But
well, these are also alternate universe versions, so they could be approximations of something.
Yeah, I like how on the thing that I really like about this Mirror Universe one is Like on the Miranda class, that roll bar thing that's above the saucer is just like the torpedo launchers and some accessory bays. But on this one, it looks like it's the bridge on the roll bar.
Yeah.
Well, one little second here. I take offense at this headline at the bottom. Transformers are very cool. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
Like GoBots, but cooler.
Oh, they're way cooler than GoBots. Oh my god.
Oh.
GoBots are for nerds.
I loved Shaq's and his enthusiasm over the Terran weapons. I thought that was really cute.
Oh, weapons are offline.
That was just a perfect
So many
comedic moment for
weapons
Shax.
offline.
And yeah, Del, I would love to know, you put this in our Discord too. Like, what do you mean Unification 4? We get a Unification 3, so I'm not sure what we're missing there. Anyway,
Yeah.
here's a simple one. What do you think about Ransom's warp command at the end?
It's a
Time
bad
to
joke, but it
engage the
works.
core. I mean, it's awful. It's so bad, but it's
on
like
brand for
perfectly
him.
on
I
brand.
engage my
for
core all the
Ransom.
time.
If we're making a thing out of warp calls, then I guess I can't fault him for being on brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the worst warp call we've heard, and it's
All the best
I
ones are
can't, but-
taken.
You know what? I'm going to give it to him. I think he may have the truest character moment in the whole like episode, because he goes from being like really cool, you know, when he admits that he hid the Klingon brother and all this stuff, so that way Mortimer could have deniable culpability. But then we get this ending where he's just being lame and making people compete against each other and coining bad catchphrases.
Well,
That
that's
is
his
character.
style. That's his style. According, like on the Upper Decker episode, he was fully fine sitting back and letting everybody sort of duke it out while he like pumped iron or whatever.
I think this Unification 4 is the reference to that Kirk short film from Otoy a couple weeks ago. where
Oh,
Kirk
okay.
came back and like went to the Kelvin timeline when Spock was dying.
Heard.
That does bring up the question that I had put in here, because thanks, Del, in Discord. Does the discofication of Klingons mean that Discovery is set in another reality?
I sure hope so.
Same.
Oh,
I say
Wow.
it can go
Well-
either way, and it's up to you to decide how you feel, because it could be an alternate universe, or it could just be these Klingons exist in alternate universes and our own.
Nah, I don't want that mucking up my good prime universe Star Trek. That can be its own universe. It's fine. It's over there.
Yeah, I agree with-
I
Was
like
slower.
Discovery to an extent, but I think it just there's a lot of like choices that they make that are fun for Discovery. But for example, like I don't know, the burn kind of like I have mixed feelings about is something like going forward, like knowing it's going to happen. Like it kind of makes it so that it feels a little pointless, some of the stuff they're building, because we know it's going to get blown up. Like
I look at the disco
Yes.
future as an alternate timeline. Once they jumped, they created an alternate timeline, at least in my opinion.
okay.
I
Just
like
like
The past
yeah,
stuff, I
the,
don't
the
know.
jump to the 32nd century, I think, solidified it as a sort of its own thing. David S. Pumpkin is its own thing. The reunification of Federation happened at light speed, like they were so all broken apart for 100 years, and they just sort of like, hey, you know, let's get the band back together, like it was nothing. It was just
oh,
so
it's Tuesday, time to revive the Federation.
yeah. It's just so like there's just some things that are preposterous even by Star Trek standards that I am fine with Discovery being its own bubble thing.
Yeah, and Planet X, nobody's saying that it's not canon, because everything on screen is canon, but not everything in the mirror universe isn't the prime universe. And I don't agree with this theory either, personally. I don't think that it means that Disco is in a different universe. I also want it to be part of the prime universe. My favorite take on this was from Sean Varick from Trek Culture, where he basically said, like, yeah, in other universes, the Klingons probably are like this, because even in the Prime universe, at one time, they were like this. So, yeah, there are multiple universes where they look like this at one time or another.
We also got the impression from that season that section of Klingons was sort of like a splinter group. So it could be that maybe the splinter group overtook the rest of the Klingons and they all ended up looking like this. I could see that as a probable other reality.
I mean, we've already done in this season the Orions and the Blue Orions, which still wasn't 100% solidified. Like, are they the exact same race with some kind of mutation? Are they like an offshoot race? Are they nothing but under the same Orion the Orion Syndicate?
Like I
we
thought
still
it was
don't
sort of
know, but
I thought it was like an analog to Romulans and Vulcans.
Yeah.
Could be,
So,
yeah.
like, I think it's the same thing here with the Klingons. You could say that there have been multiple breeds of Klingons, and some of them died out over history. Or you can take the Phlox interpretation, which, like, I think was great until we messed it up again in Discovery. Like, I don't care that we keep changing the Klingons. I only care in Enterprise that they took the time to explain Klingons, and they then Discovery is like, nope, we and JJ and the JJ verse are gonna do a whole different thing over here. But I don't think that any of this stuff is outside the Prime timeline. I think it is still same Prime universe stuff.
I don't know. I feel like this was probably just like a timeline where the Klingons wisely decided not to augment themselves. Although I don't know why they would have wound up being purple.
The purple.
Maybe
universe.
they're from the same dimension as the purple Enterprise.
No, they were just going through a Prince phase for a couple of eons. I get it. He was the fuck master.
Their DS9 had Prince instead of Vic Fontaine. Yes.
Him and his ballad guitars overtook their culture.
Ever played Purple Rain in the original Klingon?
No, but I have played Around the World in 80 Days in the original Klingon.
Yeah, I'm sad we didn't get to see the mini Intrepid class resolved or the Milking Edward.
Yeah.
Really tiny though.
Like they're like, I'm gonna find a way home. So is it gonna be in the spinoff and they go through the portal? I don't know.
I don't know, that Admiral just needed stuff to do.
Milk the multiverse.
I would have been fine milking cows, honestly.
Are you sure about
Who
that?
are they and who has
Is that how
decided?
you want to phrase that?
We're just, bantering it back and forth because we've never been shown on screen whether it is or not.
I mean, technically, can we prove Lower Decks is Prime Universe?
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's Prime Universe in the 2D universe.
Yeah, to itself, it's the Prime Universe, but
This is true.
I mean, it arguably demonstrably isn't the Prime Universe since we watch them go into the Strange New Worlds universe, which is arguably a more Prime universe.
well, was that a dimensional portal or a time portal? It could have been both or either.
I hope
Let's speculate wildly.
I hope in the Strange New Worlds universe, Anson Mount ends up a mute with scarring and stuff,
Not Pike, actual Anson Mount.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
He's the one that has to communicate with beeps.
What a twist. Some M.
I hope he
Shyamalan
never
Star
talks
Trek.
again. Purple Rain of Blood. Oh, damn it, Dustin. That's so
I'm just trying to understand Planet X's here because nobody on screen has ever said that Disco is either Prime or not. Nor have the right
not
holders.
a conversation they would necessarily have outside of Terran Empire, not Terran Empire.
Well, and we also got proof that it's not part of the Kelvin universe. And that's about it as far as Discovery goes.
Okay, this episode was written by Mike McMahon, and we all know where he's been. So we should all be thankful we didn't have a whole episode of people arguing with themselves about who's the prime person. That's what could have fucking happened. This came out so much better. He totally respected his own good impulses.
We need a courtroom episode that just decides the Prime universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like kind of too meta, even for lower decks to necessarily talk about.
You never know.
I mean, if they got more seasons, I could have seen them going there, maybe.
Dude, I'm not sure why you're being like super condescending here, because show me where the intellectual property holder has ever told us that Disco is either Prime or not.
Who holds? I don't know.
It's Paramount.
Prime to you, not prime to you. We accept all ways of identifying Discovery.
I mean, it could have been different, I suppose, if they commented on the Discovery Klingons as like, oh, we've turned into something that we've never seen in our own universe. That's weird. But they kind of just left it as a gag, I guess.
Yeah, Star Trek has so much like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, alternate universe stuff going
Exactly.
on that, like, honestly, really trying to pin down what is truly the like unaltered Prime timeline is pretty freaking hard, because every single show has like temporal nonsense that like ventures into other timelines. Every single one, like, all of them have interdimensional shenanigans of some kind. Like, you know, we get like the episode of Many Wharfs in TNG. Like, there are so many of them.
The one
like,
is Science Blue.
I love the smell of tachyons in the morning.
I love the smell of
You know what it is?
kebabs in the morning.
You know what it is? I put this down. That acronym stands for the whole sort of general mishmash. Dell will know what that is. It's from Hitchhiker's Guide, and it's a way to describe the multiverse with all. Basically, what it comes down to is it just says it's just what everything's made up of. It doesn't mean anything. You can slice up the whole general mishmash any way you like, and you'll come up with something that someone will call home.
I would like to point out, I think Trek episodes should either be alternate universe episodes or timey-wimey episodes, but not both at the same time, because that would be confusing.
Yeah.
All right, we've spent an awful lot of time on this one. Let's do something way more fun. Why do you think Ascendancy guy fell out of the energy at the end?
O'Connor!
Because the koala is now in the rift.
maybe he insulted Eucalyptus and the koala was not having it.
God, that must have hurt. Every time I see something like that, somebody falling out of a portal and just hitting the fucking ground, it must hurt. Like,
yeah, dude got yeeted.
Yeah, it does feel a little weird that he just like drops out now. And there are definitely worse places to drop out than sickbay or the ship that you left.
I don't know,
That
because
does seem like
John is
a
pretty
lot, like-
skimpy with the pain medication. So
oh yeah, God, I'd hate to be on that ship.
Man, it
I'd
does
be
seem
cussing
like
her out all the
deposited
time.
in there on purpose, though.
Ooh, I
Like,
like
oh,
Mr.
okay,
Captain.
well, I'm done with you, but to sick bay with you.
Okay, I think I got a character thread we should pick up on. How are we all feeling about the Tendi to Lynn stuff? Like, do we think that pays off well enough? I thought it was good for this episode, considering some of the problems there could be there.
I like the anime effects.
Oh God, so satisfying.
I thought the science besties line was like so cute that I'm willing to forgive how like very silly their little like competition storyline was. I don't know. I feel like it could have been in the background of like the last 2 episodes if they wanted to like really pay that off and make that a thing.
Yeah.
It didn't have to like be a big storyline, but just a couple of like interactions here and there would have made it suitable.
well, on the planet where they got the timey-wimey planet, there was a bit of that. And I felt like this was a nice progression of that story. I feel like they could have woven in Rutherford's arc with that, because it used to be that Tendi and Rutherford were the buddies. And now Tendi and T'Lyn are, working together more closely. So why they didn't go that route, I don't know. But like Rutherford constantly in contact with Tendi to the point where it's like, I can't be myself. But, the fact that they're not working together is no big deal. It's just like, it just feels like they didn't they just didn't know what to do with Rutherford and had to hook him into this ship changing thing.
Right.
Outside of this episode, I think we could fit Rutherford's contribution into a YouTube short this season.
Yeah, you're not
So it's
kidding.
like no screen time.
If they just breadcrumbed a few things, even 2 or 3 episodes prior, instead of just, oh crap, it's the finale. Well, character arcs, go.
I really think the T'Lyn and Tendi stuff like totally works just from presentation for me. I think that's one of Lower Decks' benefit is that as an animated property, it gets to do a lot more with presentation in a way we don't get to do with regular Star Trek. And speaking of anime, that Kamehameha ball that absolutely destroyed the Klingon shields, that was so great, and we need more stuff like that in like Trek all around. I think Trek would actually benefit from more like sort of actiony anime touches like that. If we get another animated show, if we could have more stuff like that, I think that would be really beneficial.
Riker could do a great spirit bomb.
Unfortunately, I didn't remember her name, but I really enjoyed bringing back the character with the laurel wreath. Again,
Ollie, much better character development than Rutherford.
Yeah. I
More
really
screen
love
time,
that they
too.
brought her back here. I mean, that episode, we were like, why didn't we do anything with the season arc? And we were doing something with the season arc. We just didn't know it at the time. So that's pretty cool. I agree with you, Clarence, too. I wish the implant thing and his like hatred of the Cerritos grew a little bit more over the season and just wasn't like, oh, hey, I'm going to go way out of character for a point.
Literally, we just needed a few more scenes of his implant not working with the Cerritos and him like blaming the Cerritos for it and like generally being a little more beleaguered and frustrated. Like,
or letting us see from his perspective what the issue was. Something similar to when LaForge let us see through his visor and Picard was all nerding out about it. That was pretty cool. But like, you know, it just felt like his emotions were just so out of bounds for the character. It was distracting.
They could have given him a side story instead of Miglimo.
Do you get HBO on this thing, Lieutenant LaForge?
It does feel like they were trying to do that. They're like, oh, LaForge lost his visor in the movie, so yeah, Rutherford, you can have regular eyes.
You can have your whole regular head back.
Was his scar even gone? Or did he?
No, I think it's gone.
Why were Shax and T'Ana downplayed as a couple this season? I don't think they really were necessarily. I mean, we seem to get like one reference to them, you know, doing something each season, and as the like background characters, that kind of makes sense to me.
I mean, I get that we're not going to get the same amount of time with them as we do the rest of our cast, but I also think that's one of the more intriguing like couples in Lower Decks, and given some of the people in the audience, that might be interesting for them. Some of the people who are of the furry community, they might find some agency in that. You would think maybe that'd be something some of these Star Trek higher ups would be interested in poking at. I think they're I don't think they're like a very serious couple, but I kind of wonder why Tiana isn't more receptive to his emotional needs. Like, we've seen him have very intense emotional like moments, and she never really responds in a way you would think somebody who is intimate with him would.
I thought it was odd she wasn't involved with the storyline in the Upper Decks episode more. Like, they had her weird painkiller storyline instead, but like that actually would have been a perfect time to like show another side to T'Ana and like have her, I don't know, be like supportive of Shax or something.
I got the impression that their relationship is purely physical. I don't
think she loves him.
I don't see yeah, like Rob said, you know, I don't see her coming to him while he's having these like PTSD experiences. Like, that could have been a really cool, serious like cartoon has a heart moment and they like
Yes.
swing and a miss. Like, why
Well, I
did
think
they
he's
not-
hiding them.
were they not there for each other?
Like, because he ran
Right.
out to do it in private. So I don't know if he's like keeping it all to himself.
So the follow-up we had to that, do you think that Shax gets the therapy that he so desperately needs that was brought up in the last episode?
Question Miglimo's competence.
I don't know. He seems to be being given many opportunities this season to actually be a therapist. Whether it's Shax or like the other Clockins or
I just had a thought though. After that episode, we did see Shax contemplating a mountain made out of potatoes, which is food, and that's how Miglimo does therapy. So maybe that was his solution.
I got potatoes in the refrigerator. I'm so hungry now. I wish you'd
All
never mentioned
problems are
that.
solved by the humble potato.
At least they're not bug snacks like the Klingons have.
I thought Miglimo showed great cultural competence by sort of framing the prospect of therapy as like a battle,
Mhm.
that appealed to his background and everything. As to whether or not he would like long term do that, I don't know. Under ransom, I don't think anything's gonna get done. I just can't see things improving, not personally or professionally for anybody on the ship.
They'll be too busy engaging the core.
Yeah, I mean the way I see it, he goes to Miglimoo once. Miglimoo throws out a bunch of stupid food references. Shax gets frustrated, goes to the holodeck, blows some guys away in whatever scenario you can think of with Ta'ana, and really it's him and Ta'ana. Ta'ana is his therapy.
And then Miglimo struts around bragging about what a good job he did curing Shax of his PTSD.
Oh, a little
then
birdie
goes-
told me you were cured.
Then he goes to the garden and licks some more goo off of the Keijon.
oh right. Forgot about
Yeah,
that.
that was
Okay,
a weird
I'm a-
little scene.
I've decided I'm going to write a sternly worded letter to Paramount and get you guys on as the new Lower Decks writers for season 6. Yeah, baby, season 6 with the Buffer Time crew.
Yeah, when Comedy Central picks it up inevitably for its second lease at life.
Oh dear.
Oh man, they're going to cut all our budgets. Like I'm going to be making half if I'm working for Comedy Central.
Yeah, I am so there for that, Del.
Yes, Dill, that rules. Yes.
I don't think Rise is ready for that.
Send him to Casperia Prime.
Risa, like, I don't know if Risa would do it for him. That's really like a sort of leisurely, sort of like lazy river kind of place. Do they look like they could just like hang back and have some margaritas on a beach? I don't know. Like,
They're
I don't
probably-
know.
stick
that.
people.
He probably would gang up with a bunch of incels like Worf in that one episode. Like, he'd just be looking for action, get involved with a bunch of people he shouldn't be. I totally see how that could go down.
I feel like their kink would escalate their need to put themselves in danger to the point where they do that outside of the holodeck, maybe like on the front line of a battle or something, where they're like getting
Yeah.
shot at in a trench, like, or, I just don't see them like having leisurely time like a normal quote couple.
So, are we going to mention like how fantastic the little Targ was? We didn't mention it earlier, did we? We were talking off camera about it. The moment when the communication
Little Targ.
the moment when the communications come up and it's just the Targ like barking at the screen and then being pulled back by its owner. The owner purposefully put it up to the screen for it to like bark and growl at the screen. It's so
It reminded me like I mentioned Rocco's Modern Life
Yeah.
before, but also like Invader Zim.
Yeah.
Like, the level of animation that they're putting into this one dog was really cool.
It looks insane.
The slobber is so great.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Horrible little creature. I love it.
I don't even know if it could see out that one eye.
Plush coming soon, $29.99.
Oh God, yes, I would buy that. I would buy that.
And you can fill it with gack to make it actually like ooze.
Perfect.
I hope that is a stuffy. I hope that is like a merchandise that you can buy. What did everybody think about that closing speech that Mariner gave about we're not perfect, but you know, my mom, the captain, picked us, and it's like, I don't know if I would like, I don't know if I would say, you know, flawed, but you know, we do our job on label on this crew because of the episode Upper Deckers. Like, you would have to completely forget that episode for that speech to really like hit the way it's meant to.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that whole speech. Just sentimental horseshit. Just we didn't need it in this episode. We could have done that all through like subtle character actions. The season, the Futurama season finale, where it's just Fry and Leela like going through time portals for the rest of their lives. We could have done something subtle like that, and it would have come off really well. And I just don't. I just hate how we had to have this like big button on the end of it that like that's like about trying to make your characters more endearing as you're going out. Like we really didn't need it. It was just pablum. I hated it.
Would
Like,
you rather
I
have that
like
or
it.
25 extra minutes like Discovery added to the end?
Oh,
I thought it was cute. It was a good way to like look back on all of the various little side characters that we were introduced to in this like wacky little ship that we've gotten to know the past few seasons. I thought it was fine. I mean, if you're not going to be sentimental in the finale, when are you going to be sentimental? Like, it was a nice way to say goodbye to the show. I thought it was cute. I thought it was fine.
I mean, I just feel like it lays out your emotions for you. Like you don't get to have emotions with the character when you're doing that. I feel like that's telegraphing emotions to the viewer. Like it feels condescending for me to have to sit here and like have her explain that these are flawed characters, yada yada yada. When I've been watching this show for 5 seasons, I know you're flawed characters. I understand what your appeal is supposed to be.
I would put it at the level of like, you know, especially the Upper Deckers episode. I know I've sort of hit on that many times already, but like dangerously incompetent is different than just being like making a few mistakes here and there because oops, we're in, you know, uncharted areas. Like that's not even really a California class's job. Like they weren't even, you know, the entire mission at the beginning, which by the way was sort of like predicated on the flimsiest of premises, like, oh, Mirror Boimler, or you know, the Boimler's here, so it has to be you guys. Like, does it really? Like,
The Enterprise is they're too far away. Everyone else is also too far away. Don't worry about it.
Let's bring that question in before we get to our last couple of like harder hitting ones. Why did they include the Enterprise E and possibly the Titan and other ships if they weren't going to help or give us some kind of cameo out of the deal?
Because they want to play with us. That's the type of thing Mike McMahon wants to do. He wants to give you like a taste and then take it away from you.
Yeah, at the core, this show's about fan service. You want some stuff people recognize.
I think it was just already a little crowded with all of the Klingon of it all, so I think that's probably why we didn't get to see a little bit more. Personally,
I'm talking like a 10-second comms with
Yeah.
Captain Picard. Or even Worf,
Yeah.
since we know he's the one that somehow ends up destroying the E at some point.
would have been
Well, no,
nice.
it wasn't his fault.
I think along with the intro of like the opening sequence that had like the other fan service stuff from like the movie and the hand and all that stuff, like they wanted to cram as much fan service into this finale as possible and not necessarily feel the need to develop it so that people could go, ooh. And I think that's really one of the weak points of Lower Decks is like, that it's like, oh, that's neat. And
Oh, I
you know,
got that reference.
Yeah, that's definitely the lower end of the Lower Decks humor. And I also think like that type of humor muddies a little bit of what I think the tone of Lower Decks should be, which is a little more parodical. There was a line earlier talking about how like they have to cordon cordon off the baubles or something like that. And I can't do it justice, but if you just listen to the joke on its own, then it's a really funny way of pointing out how Star Trek uses a ton of nonsense language to describe things it's only barely capable of understanding, like scientific concepts that are so abstract they don't even actually exist anywhere but on paper. And I wish it could, have sharper lines like that here and there. I wish we didn't do the fan service button so much.
I hate something I have to say later.
Okay.
Do you
We're
think they should
inclusive
have
of all
used?
opinions here. Sorry, with Chris.
No, do you think it would have been better if they used ships that were distinctly tied to lower decks instead of the Enterprise? I mean, I guess the Titan sort of is, but
Yes.
like Vendome's ship, he could have come back and had one or two lines,
or the
something.
Vancouver, or the Merced, or like any ship that we've seen before, I think would have been a better choice than if we're not going to use the Enterprise E for the Enterprise E. Otherwise, it's just, oh, hey, it's a set piece, cool.
Mhm.
Okay. So one of the more hard-hitting things, this is probably going to take a while to dive into. How does this new multi-dimensional rift affect other plots in Star Trek?
Well, I think I was the one who was like, why didn't we hear about this in Picard? Because this happens before Picard, and it seems pretty noteworthy.
It's a fiasco. Like, the implications of this are nuts. This is how you get, like, Lorcas everywhere. Like, the amount of, like, swip swapping and switch swatching that could happen. Like, sending crews on missions is actually pretty dangerous when you consider how easy it would be for, like, an interdimensional duplicate to switch them out. Like, this is wild. And, like, I don't know, Starfleet plays it pretty loosey-goosey. I don't know about their protocols for, like, how they're going to be able to, like, ensure this doesn't happen if they want to have any, like, meaningful interaction with, like, alternate universe duplicates or whatever. Like, I don't know, like, the Federation doesn't have cloaking technology, so it's not like they can, like, hide while they, like, observe unseen either. Like,
You know what?
It also makes me wonder if, like, we're going into different federations, how would they know what the rules are in that different dimension and everything? So maybe they can cloak. I think it's I feel like they didn't really think about how things could be affected, similar to, why the Prime Directive exists, by going into these different dimensions and exploring them. And like the fact that they just made it a fixed point after it almost destroying everything. Maybe, take a minute, see what it really is capable, like the wormhole in the Price, like it collapsed in the middle of the episode. So it's like, how do we know how stable this is? How do we know how stable other dimensions are?
Yeah, and it's like exactly what Del was commenting on. They've already got, along with this one, there's also that other, mystery hole now that Borgatti and her armada are guarding or looking over or whatever.
There's also a time wormhole in Prodigy, but let's ignore that also.
Yeah, don't forget the one by DS9.
bro, it's looking like Swiss cheese.
Maybe
Swiss
that's how the
cheese
spinoff
galaxy.
opens. Like 10 seconds into the spinoff. Oh, it collapsed. Anyway.
You know what? From all new Trek series going forward, I mean, you can't walk into a room without a Harry Kim popping up, as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's just affecting the whole goddamn place. You go into a bar, there's a Harry Kim. Into a gym, there's a Harry Kim.
Just check the
Also-
pips first. You know what you're dealing with.
I would like an enemy faction being the Harry Kims, like forming and sort of dissolving, like their whole like faction of like rebellious, like interdimensional Harry Kims.
The Kim tones.
Also,
Yeah.
It's all means Harry Kim.
so with the gateway though, okay, so it's a gateway to all of the realities, right? But like all the other realities should not have a corresponding gateway, because none of the other realities had this disaster, because we specifically put it in just this one reality. So how do they get back? I mean, are we just
deflector.
And how do they prevent that disaster from happening again?
Yeah, it seemed like it was not a difficult problem to create.
I mean, it probably has something to do with the fact that like the wave was going to destroy all universes until Lily found a way to contain it to just one. So I'm going to say there's technobabble that makes that work in reverse.
Plot device, Mr. Frodo. Plot device. Like, I'll allow it. It's just one of those things that, like, you have to suspend a lot of disbelief. Like, I would say more than usual, when Star Trek already has a high threshold for that.
Well, the thing is, like, in TNG, they had that episode where they showed people that there was, like, some sort of pollution from going into warp, and that was just forgotten about.
Well, they did fix it off screen.
Right.
Yeah.
So in Voyager, it was supposed to fix it, but then they're like, no one cares. We won't talk about it.
They
they're
put
like-
some duct tape over it. It's doing fine.
There may like maybe a couple of episodes after that one in particular where they're like, yeah, you can go here, but you got to remember you can only go so fast.
Oh yeah, there's like a captain's log where Picard's like, we're allowed to go warp 7 today. Hooray.
Also, like, I just don't understand what the hell Starfleet is thinking putting Ransom at the head of this mission. How the fuck? And like how much worse other interdimensional ransoms may be, because I can just imagine.
Oh my god. There'll be like a fucking Lorca, but Ransom, where it's evil Ransom.
Just a gym universe.
I agree with you
The
about
mirror
that,
is
Del.
the gym mirror.
I agree with you about that, Del, but the problem with that is something that I would take immense pleasure in, and we all know that that can't happen in this timeline.
Well, that's what Dustin's doing.
True.
I really agree with Del here that like the strong suit of the show is sort of like taking an idea and sort of flipping it around and like showing all the sides to it. So I think like a multiverse show actually would make sense, sort of like a Rick and Morty type of thing. But like, I don't know if we'll get that necessarily, because again, like Rob said, we don't get to keep the nice things.
No.
We get loose threads and then they cancel shows.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it would be set up, I guess, as a future show, Del. But if they won't do it, yeah, I already do a series of what ifs. That might be the next one I do.
It's got to be better than the Marvel what ifs. 'Cause my God, I cut that shit off like midway through the second season. Like I was tired of that.
About at
I
the
only
same
watched
point.
the first season.
Okay.
Like maybe one will be like a Terran Empire, but Vic Fontaine is the Emperor.
Okay.
The Emperor.
Maybe maybe the better alternative to a what if show is something like Star Wars Visions. Like we get like an anime studio to come in and make like an independent little story that we could do. We've already seen the anime touches in Lower Decks and some other series. Yeah.
Like the short treks were kind of starting to go in that direction before they canned them altogether.
Right.
I
Oh
miss
God,
those. I wish
like
they'd
the
do more.
flashbacks of those things. Like I mean like the animated short treks or whatever. Oh my God.
The very short treks.
Yes.
Oh, I like.
Oh yeah,
oh,
those were
okay.
terrible.
Like was it Dot and Bubble?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that
those
was
were
Doctor Who.
Yeah,
Ephraim and
Dot-
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Eris.
From a
that was
Eris.
kind of cool. A cool concept.
Okay, look, Eris, you've been watching Star Trek your whole life, and let me tell you, what you needed was skibbity toilet references in Star Trek. Like, those are going to fucking age like fine wine, like a beautiful woman. Like, you don't even know.
Like a Chateau Picard.
Space milk.
Your children will be saying the Star Trek skibbity toilet references. Your children's children will be saying the Star Trek.
Oh,
Yeah, the very
skibbity
short treks
toilet
were Star Trek's attempt to be skibbity toilet. You're not kidding about that.
Data should have looked that up when he was looking at
Like
comedy.
the way that Lower Decks sort of like generated a lot of the jokes was from Star Trek ship posting, and I think it was fine the way it was without going that extra skibbity step where the
Yeah.
Gen Alpha humor doesn't translate.
What still gets me
all
is
right.
that might be the last time we see some of the Star Trek legends like Trip and George Takei.
That is
you know.
true.
Oh, fuck. I didn't even think about that. Now I hate it even more. God damn it, Wood Chris.
Let's follow up on that original question, though, with do the variants from William's ship get to go back to their own realities now? Or are they just
We're all still
stuck
on the
here?
ship, so my guess is no.
I hope at least Lily can go home. Otherwise, her universe is kind of like off to a bad start.
I mean, Eric and Bashir can go anywhere, but T'Pol now has the Katra of what, seven different Dax hosts from a different universe, and she's got to do something with that.
Yeah, I kind of wish that had been followed up on and seen where that symbiont or not the knowledge from the symbiont went. But
Like
I
don't
thought they
think
were going to get
Oh, or
Jadzia back.
like that. Yes, that is the one thread that I wish was resolved. I don't think it was going to be resolved in this episode. But if they were going to restart this, that would be a good reason to do it.
Resolve things in lower decks. Never, Eris. I won't stand for it, goddammit. I'll write as many strongly worded letters as I can to make sure nothing ever gets resolved.
So speaking of which, do we know what's going on with Paramount and that their merger or their sale or whatever? Is that like settled or?
I thought so.
Because I'm wondering
I'm going to be
if that's
honestly,
why we don't have announcements.
The last thing I had heard it was that God, I can't even remember after all the companies that were trying to buy it. Sundance, I think, right? Or
Yes.
something dance. Skydance.
Skydance.
That they had a plan for profitability for Paramount, and it sounded an awful lot like the amount of money that they were trying to save was the exact amount that Paramount Plus was losing. So
Amazing coincidence.
my guess is that we're not going to have Paramount Plus past 2025. If it makes it to 2026, I would be incredibly surprised.
I hate how everything is about advertising and money now. I just wish things were about fun and a nice, cold, refreshing yoo-hoo.
It just takes prioritizing the right projects. I mean, like I haven't considered canceling Paramount Plus since since the very beginning of CBS All Access. But after Section 31, I may cancel it until Strange New Worlds comes out.
Like after Prodigy and Queen of the Universe was taken off, I just was really cynical about the entire thing. But I am curious about where these shows are going to live once Plus is gone.
Outside of in like Europe and stuff, they're still all on Netflix for the most part.
So, does it make any sense for Mariner or Boimler to be promoted as a lieutenant to first officer? And does it make any sense for both of them to be promoted at the same time?
We have co-science officers. We have co-first officers. We have Rutherford, who probably should have gotten a promotion, but they forgot. Oh.
If I were a long-serving lieutenant on this crew, I would be pissed. I would be so mad. Like, are you kidding me? These guys have been lieutenants for like lieutenant junior grades for like what? 5 minutes? Like, are you serious? First officers?
And I know Stevens has been buttering himself up for years.
I think the real question should be, does it make sense for Ransom to be promoted to captain? Because we've seen him just be like just a fuck off just for so long.
Of this ship, yes, absolutely.
On paper, it makes sense. I mean, he was the first officer. That is how they do it. Like, it's fine. I don't. What was there no second officer to promote? Like, what is happening? This is bogus.
Yeah.
I just question the wisdom of having two officers share a key role. I think there's a reason one person is doing this is because they make a decision and then they, report to the captain and the chain of command is clear. With two people, it takes twice as long to make one decision. Mm-hmm. So to put that on first officer, like, why? Like, and also
interpersonal
first officer is not a role for a reason. No, I don't think either of them is qualified to be first officer at all.
It's just nutty. I don't get it. It's very silly. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, in
What?
theory, neither one of them have gone through the command training.
Literally.
And suddenly they're in a
Have
position.
you done a hologram simulation where you have to send your friend to their death yet? No,
Exactly.
then shut up.
No, they still
managing
have to
the-
send Jordy.
They
Always.
have to manage the entire crew.
Oh my god,
Like,
it's Jordy for everyone.
EXO manages the entire crew. That's crazy to put on these two. Like, why?
Yeah, like
Okay.
they like they're gonna be like reviewing the performance of officers that like outrank them. Like this is nuts.
Okay, party game. We have to do a simulation where we send a fellow buffer timer off to their death. Who do you send off to your death? I'm going to go Windgrace because I know you the less. The least. I'm sorry. That was bad grammar. Forgive me my bad grammar.
But
I'll
that
choose
defeats
myself.
the whole purpose of the exercise.
I also
Oh, man. I didn't even think of myself as a possibility. I should have.
I learned that in A Farewell to Farms, I'll just choose myself.
Self-sacrifice is the most honorable and noble.
And then I'll make you my crew.
Shit.
Me and Rob can share first officer. We're both provisional.
Ah, fuck yes. Competition between friends. Yes. So great. I'm going to own your ass. You don't even know. I'm sorry. I'm phrasing. I got to work on my phrasing. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's your co-first officer. You guys need to be
Still doing
co-call.
phrasing.
All right, so the last major question we have, how would you have done this finale differently? I'll tell you, for me, the answer would have started with Rutherford. I don't even know what that looks like, but it looks different than what we got.
Everything Rutherford got should have gone to Billups. Like Billups should have had all those plot beats. Like we could have just taken away all this eye nonsense, all the implant nonsense. We could have given Billups a bigger moment, and we could have had Rutherford do something else that would have been fun, or just show up at the end as a joke.
Just show up at the end.
Awesome work with it.
Yeah.
Rutherford
Hey,
just
guys,
walks
I
in.
was asleep.
Okie
What
dokie.
I'm muted.
Yeah, you got it. Win Grace.
You are not muted.
Okay.
I thought that like the Rutherford's story could have been better if it was tied with the Tendi and Talin story, because he's losing his sort of co-worker, somebody that he would work very closely with, to Tendi. Like, let's delve into that a little bit. Other than that, I think like the action was my favorite part. Just somehow have more of that, have more like higher stakes and a bigger risk of the Cerritos not making it, because they got a little knocked around, but it wasn't like we are, about to die kind of thing.
It was more like nuisance, less real threat.
I would probably do more with Marilyn, Mariner, and Freeman, because I feel like, even though what we had was okay, I still feel like it borders on a sketch. Like, I still feel like it borders on a writer's sketch in the room. Like, they could have taken that to a little bit more of an interesting level. Lower Decks is always kind of underserving for me on everybody because there's so many characters. I don't think they have enough time to actually fully flesh them out.
Okay.
I would definitely not have Mariner and Boimler promoted to first officer because that's nuts. I probably would have spent more time. Cut the Rutherford thing completely. Honestly, he hasn't had anything to do all season. Why change that now? I would maybe have him and like Tendi spend some time bonding or something. I would probably reduce the Klingon presence because as fun as it was, I feel like it took up a lot of airtime in the episode and just felt like everything felt a bit crowded because of that. And I don't know, I would just streamline it a little bit more and make it so that our like main core four have more of a chance to shine, because they still felt kind of like lost in the sauce, I guess, in terms of like how much was going on. And so it didn't really feel like we got to say goodbye to these characters in like a meaningful way.
Also, the Klingons that they teamed aboard were really the heroes of this episode. Like,
Lore saves the day again.
Yeah, they came up with the damn solution. You know, it's like, yeah, he keeps like, I wish he would have been enlisted on the Cerritos, maybe.
I want a Malore Starfleet arc so bad.
Thank you.
He could have got a field commission and then become first officer.
Yeah.
I just like, the funniest part of the episode to me was when he goes, when I worked at the farm, like, it just came out of fucking nowhere.
I feel like that was also a way to kind of shoehorn in a decent character decision for Ransom to like kind of maybe show he might be good at captain, like almost
Right.
sort of, but not really. And then it also gave a resolution, albeit like forced, for the Boimler pad, which kind of fizzled out
Oh
there
yeah,
towards the
I
end.
almost forgot about that.
No more bointers.
No.
Do
Okay.
it, Scott. You've been looking to do this for a bit.
I have. And like I said, this is either going to be really well received or I'm going to get shot through the lungs. So the show leans pretty heavily into fan service. I think if you're going to do a finale, you lean way into that. So let's say you get to the point where you're trying to close this rift. But it turns out that just one ship with a subspace gluonic beam or whatever can't do it. So who randomly shows up out of nowhere? The freaking Voyager, complete with all the guest voices you could imagine. But as it turns out, Cali class and Intrepid class can't do it together either. So assist from the Defiant, with not only all the guest voices you could ever want, but the surprising return of the Emissary, because the prophets realized that, you know, all the universe dying was probably a bad thing. And that's why this is impossible, because you know they'll never get Avery Brooks. But when all else fails and these three little ships can't do it on their own, the Enterprise was on its way anyway, so now it shows up. You get every possible guest appearance that anybody could want from this era. And then after all's said and done, after everybody's had their contributions, and you get the same ending, surprisingly enough, with this stable multiversal wormhole, you hear the three words that you didn't expect, but you almost were dreading: computer and program. Because this last episode has been a hollow simulation being watched by the daughter. No. Yes, it is. By one young ensign. Hello.
Whoop.
By a young ensign, the daughter of one Beckett Mariner, before she reports for her first day of work on the new Cali class refit Cerritos A, captained by Brad Boimler, who is older and has, of course, still dyes his hair purple, but with gray streaks in it.
He still has the beard?
Oh, he still has the beard. Boimler still has the beard. The beard works for him.
See, I thought you were... Go, Vanessa.
Oh, I was just going to say that a lot of the Voyager crew is featured on Prodigy. So I feel like they're getting a good second wind on that show.
Fair enough.
But I like the idea of, like, the thing is, like, I think they would have done that if they knew that it was a season or series finale versus season finale.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking when you said the words that everyone dreaded to hear was resistance is futile, and then like a Borg cube comes out of the rift, or then you got me thinking, like, where you were like tying in all the shows, you get an uncrewed Discovery A coming out of the rift, and Zora just hails them like, "Where is Kraft?"
Ooh. Oh my god!
Fade to black.
Oh,
that'd be really good, actually. Damn.
And then you just see Kovic shaking hands with a koala in the background.
Oh my god! Mic drop. I am a little disappointed we didn't get the koala in this one.
Somebody said it was there briefly, like in the in the background or something, like in the swirls or something, but I don't know. I didn't see it.
Okay.
That's worth a
Yeah, no one
rewatch.
really climbs the Black Mountain either. That's kind of feels low stakesy. I do feel like someone should have died, honestly.
Yeah,
Well,
that
no.
was something I was really hoping for this season, but I mean,
We
I
got
guess
that whole
Boimler's
scene,
all
yeah.
we got.
Boimler, like the koala told him, it's not yet your time. And we never got to see his time
Right.
or his alternate's time because that was fake. But I always thought the series was going to end with a future version of Boimler. Like the whole series would have been his logs
too.
and like
Me
slightly
too.
exaggerated. And that's why things were a little goofier than normal. He was just kind of playing it up. But
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. We've been here for a long time. Any final questions before we do our out of 10? All right. Well, I'm going to give this one an 8. Last episode, the build-up episode, was a 10 for me. This one, it's good. And especially as like a season closer, it's pretty great. As a season finale, as a series finale, it's decent. It's way better than TOS or Enterprise, which I mean isn't hard. But it doesn't hit those TNG, Voyager, DS9 ending moments. It's good, but not. And it's even like it's above average, so I'm giving it an 8. I love the humor. Even though the Klingons do feel shoehorned in, like some of the best comedy comes out of the Klingon stuff. So, yeah, I'm of two mindsets on that one. But yeah, I'm at an 8. Go ahead, Ren, and we'll go around clockwise.
I think, yeah, I'm around a similar place. I'll give it like an 8.25 because I did really enjoy a lot of it and I did feel some big feelings at the end. And like it was kind of exciting at times and did have some good resolution to like the overall season. But I agree with your criticism, Dustin, that it feels like a really good season ender and a really like just okay, like pretty good series ender as opposed to something that like really just like packs a lot of punch and like blows you away and makes you go, oh my god, wow, like that was amazing. Like this was pretty good, but had a lot of like I think major flaws that kept it from like really hitting like the high highs of like where we've seen Lower Decks at its best, and definitely like falls short of like Star Trek at its best by a some margin.
I don't think I can do anything more than an 8. Even like the 0.25 Ren gave it, it just feels like too much, too generous. You know, like you didn't earn that little 2.25 tip just yet, Lower Decks. I think as a series finale, it kind of shows all the problems Lower Decks has. It never figured out quite how to balance its main characters and its very extensive cast, along with like it didn't really figure out the line between parody and fan fiction love. And I think it's telling that the episode before this was more interesting for me and had better payoffs all around on character and action levels. But I think it did earn the 8 because I think it did do what it generally does well, very well. In fact, exceptionally well in a few moments. I think it brought in some flavors that I don't get out of Trek as much, and I would like more of. These anime touches are really dynamic and fun to watch. Let's face it, Trek can be a little dry when it comes to the action because a lot of it's just people standing around pushing buttons. And for us to get like a magical girl transformation sequence almost out of Tendi and T'Lyn, that was very cool and it was very exciting. I like all these characters. I think a lot of the character beats kind of like worked okay simply because they've been set up. Like I know a lot of us here aren't too interested in Tendi like being a little jealous, being a little bit a little bit frustrating. But I think because they had already set up, at least we had a little bit of payoff in that manner. So yeah, the best I can do is an 8. I enjoyed watching this series despite the frustrations. Competent production, animation, very good music for everything. The music cues hit really well. The fan service was fun, even if I didn't think it added to the story in a way that really propelled the story forward.
I think we'll go about, let's say, 8.5. For many of the reasons already stated. It is a decent standalone episode. It is a decent season
Whoa.
ender. It is, wow, Dell. Okay. But it is not a series ender. There's just too many things in here that were, they clearly feel like they were written because they knew they had another season at least in the pipeline, and they wanted to be able to pay this stuff off later. And then inside this series or this episode itself, like, yeah, you've got like stuff with Rutherford, being mostly ignored and then kind of jam packed into this last episode. Further questions raised about how he can just take his implant off when we've literally seen it like rip half of his head off. The whole idea of co-first officers, which just does not work. But on the other hand, you get some like decent arcs for Freeman and Starbase 80 of all things. So yeah, 8.5.
Before you go, Josh, I just want to say, Del, I honestly, when I first watched this, I was thinking like, yeah, this is either 6.5 or a 7. After I watched it again, it was, and honestly, it went back to something that Ren said in her Discord. You'd said that I wanted to feel more, or like I wanted more feelings out of this or something, and like that's where I was at after the first one, and then the second watch, it's some stuff hit me more. But I do think 6.5 is fair. Go ahead, Josh.
Pretty much everything that's been said is obviously how I feel about it too. I do think that it's kind of hard to judge it in two different ways, because as an episode, and an episode of this season specifically, I think it was above average. It did better than some of the episodes this season, but it wasn't my all-time favorite. But as a series finale, and ostensibly the last time we might ever see these people, I don't think it will be, but if it is the end forever, it leaves me feeling a little bit like unresolved with most of the characters. And the ones who did get resolution, like Freeman somewhat, isn't necessarily even a main character. And somebody like Rutherford, who supposedly is one of the main people in the show, I mean, I don't even know much growth he's had over the entire series, let alone this season. So that left me feeling a little bit wanting. But I did like a lot of the elements in the episode enough to really, like, from start to finish, pretty much enjoy it. It was touted as having extra runtime, and it did have a few extra minutes, but it felt like those extra minutes were given to the Klingon stuff, which is what I liked the least, outside of a few of the gags and the jokes with them. So looking at it as a pure episode from the season, I think it's probably about an 8.25, but as a series finale, I don't know. It's not one of my tops.
I give this episode a 7. I think as far as like Lower Decks series or season finales, it stacks up about the same for me. Because I think Lower Decks does this thing where they kind of dilly-dally the whole season except for the last 2 episodes, and that's when they really do like sort of like ramp up the action and ramp up the stakes and everything. So I feel like it's kind of just doing that same thing. It just, for me, like Ren, like you, like then Dustin mentioned that Ren mentioned sort of, it doesn't have that sort of emotional impact for me to be a season or a series finale that stacks up against other series finales. I thought that the fan service was okay. Like the intro stuff was cute. It's fine. I actually did appreciate that they brought back Starbase 80. The jokes were pretty good when they hit, but the developments that they were introducing did not really entice me to want to watch another season of this. Like the ransom of all people, going on an experimental mission sounds just batshit, just completely unhinged for Starfleet to make that decision. And then on top of that, promote two people that are sort of like middling LJGs to co-first officers on top of having two science officers. That's such a convoluted way to run a ship. But I did like the idea of there being like a C average crew, but like showing them as dangerously incompetent in one episode and then going, we're just kind of flawed, we're just doing our best, and we're all explorers like that. Like, pick a tone and stay there. Like, it doesn't, it's like it has heart when it wants to, and then it's just completely wacky and without consequence most of the time. So I think like this episode is emblematic of a lot of frustrations I have with Lower Decks, even though I found it entertaining. So a 7.
All fair. So before I give anybody an opportunity to make any final thoughts, we're going to take a little break after this. We're not going to do our normal year-end best and worst of 2024. I haven't seen Prodigy season 2 yet, and with only 2 seasons to talk about otherwise this year, yeah, it doesn't really seem worth it. So we're going to take a break. We will be back before Section 24. Section 24, whoever they are, I'm sure they're very important within the Federation. Before the Section 31 movie comes out, we will come back and we will do Sub Rosa as a review.
Which was
So that ought to
in
be
this
fun.
episode.
Otherwise, I want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. And since we won't be on the air New Year's Eve, this show turns 2 on New Year's Eve. Or actually Christmas Eve, tomorrow. So, yeah, it was just Scott and I when we did like the thing before this was even buffer time. So, cool. Look forward
Don't
to
forget
doing
about
another
Kwanzaa.
year and then some. What?
Don't
Queen's Day.
forget about Kwanzaa. Yeah, don't forget about Kwanzaa.
Oh yeah, Kwanzaa.
Don't forget Life Day either.
Happy Life Day, everybody.
Oh, happy
That's an
Life
important one.
And
yeah,
Festivus.
Does anybody have any final thoughts on this episode or the season before we get out of here?
Also, happy Festivus.
Oh, yeah.
It's today.
Happy Festivus.
Anyone have any grievances, real quick?
We can talk about that after
There's
the
also
show.
some people after this, so.
All right. I guess that pretty much sums up how most of us feel about this season. It was mediocre to good. It was never really bad, though. I cannot say that there's one episode that I'm like, that wasn't a good episode. They were all at least like middle of the road serviceable at worst and a 10 at best. So a decent season. Not great, but decent.
It felt like eating at like a good chain restaurant for me. Like I kind of know what I'm going to get. There might be a surprise here and there.
Not quite Rainforest Cafe, but
Damn straight.
Margaritaville, maybe.
Oh man, yeah.
I've never had the pleasure.
Same.
Better than a Denny's, that's for sure.
I mean, that's not hard.
Oh.
All right. Well, let's get out of here. I'd like to thank all of you that joined me here 2 days before Christmas and all of you for tuning in. So until we see you again, live long